I wanted to do a segment paying tribute to my favorite podcast ever, CumTown. And I had already recorded and was in the middle of editing when the boys decided out of the blue to release a 29-minute farewell episode of the podcast. It's a nice surprise and a very Adam-heavy episode, let's say. There were some decent riffs in there, like Nick saying that he was going to pay a giant black guy to say that Nick raped him. And lots of talk about Adam's dating life and how it led to Kanye's swastika-related ventures and Elon's Doge budget cuts. And I was just sitting there like, how about a clone of Elon Musk called Naran? It's just N''Ron. And I think we all know what he would look like. But let's go to a clip from that last episode.
You know,
is this a quick thank you? What is this? A full podcast?
So.
It
was just fun to riff, but
yeah, we want to say thanks everybody for subscribing years and years ago
and forgetting.
Probably.
And thank God somehow your bank didn't cancel it.
Right? Yeah.
And we understand that this will go to zero really fast.
Probably.
I'm actually shocked. You guys did your best to get it to zero this year.
We've tried.
Leaving me with crumbs.
It's the producers.
When I'm finally back in, we're basically splitting $4,000 three ways. But
no, it's like around $400,000 a month.
Yeah, it is.
Yes! That's sick. Okay, well,
thank you to everyone.
Thank you to everyone. We love you.
Thanks, guys.
And so we're all doing our own thing, obviously, but this stays as sort of like an archive.
Yeah.
And we'll split the money.
This is a quick thank you, not a full podcast?
We're about to do another fucking podcast.
We're doing a full podcast for you?
Yeah. Little reparations.
Well, I guess we got our finale to the saga that was CumTown. A quick closeout where they actually all sounded upbeat, and it was funnier than most of the last year of that show. And it sounds like we'll also be getting an episode of Stavi's World. I look forward to hearing them giving advice to, a 32-year-old virgin on how he can finally get from the regular obese woman who he works with and is covered in psoriasis. I just wanted to add this introduction to the segment since we got this bombshell of a surprise, and I'll just pick up with what I had previously recorded after this.
You've been waiting for it.
Fuck. Some motherfucking Bulba.
A crafty, vicious Doug, Sebulba became one of the Outer Rim's most successful pod racers.
Oh, that's who Sebulba is.
Yeah.
That sounds like a good name.
You don't remember Sebulba?
I do now, yeah.
I'm going to win.
Let me see your pussy.
Let me fuck your ass and pussy. Fuck you, Sebulba.
So
I'm Anakin Guy Sucker.
All right.
What's wrong?
He's going to switch the cable. Fuck you.
Fuck you, Sebulba.
You fucking homo. I've sucked my mom's pussy.
Fuck you, Sebulba. I'm a sex slave and you're a space. You're some weird bug space and I'm a sex slave.
Before I begin, go ahead and get comfortable. But first, print out your pictures of your favorite pictures of Adam Friedland, and get ready for the special treat at the end of the episode where we all pay tribute of another kind to our favorite bug. Let's call it a 21 gun salute. And yes, an in memoriam show of this dumb podcast is even gayer than what I said in the previous sentence. But as I've said before, this show was in part inspired by CumTown, and in particular, the episode where Nick is all alone, no Stav, no Adam, for the first 15 minutes or so, just riffing out bits by himself like he's a complete schizophrenic. That's a mood I often want to capture when I pick up the microphone.
And, I need Candy to live. Oh, here comes Adam's dog. Adam's dog is here. This is, people probably hate this, but this is very funny to me. It's a very funny way to approach doing the podcast is what if out of nowhere I just fired Adam and Stav, and then there's no feedback. It's a complete echo chamber, and I just really get to lean into complete I don't even know. Is that mental illness? Something feels, it's funny because this isn't much different than doing the show. But the idea of recording just yourself speaking seems like so incredibly self-centered, which is, there's no difference. I mean, it's the same thing. You just do it with two other people. But when you do it alone and you're aware that you're recording something that you haven't prepared at all, with the presumption that people are going to download it and be like, let's hear this guy ramble to himself in a room. It's I tell you, it's not laugh out loud funny, but it's the kind of funny, it's like book funny. It's like that kind of Mark Twain. It's the way Mark Twain was funny, and that you don't laugh at it and it's fucking gay, but, somebody works at the library, so everybody, if you want a job at the library, you gotta pretend to like Mark Twain. I kind of like Mark Twain, I think.
True CumTown, of course, died when Stav left a couple years ago, but there was always some hope, at least for me, that maybe, just maybe, the Adam Friedland Show podcast would be funny at some point. Maybe Nick would actually start doing bits again, or trot out some familiar characters and get things on track. Nope. It was mostly both of them looking depressed and just not releasing episodes of the talk show they did that they had recorded like 18 months beforehand. And Adam right now, doing interviews, still has the Patreon sitting at just under $56,000 per month. I hope he succeeds after being called a dust eater for nearly a decade at this point. Though that's a big decline from the 140,000 or so that they peaked at, and even more when you factor in the awesome sponsors with totally great products that they would get on their show, like sports betting, ED pills, and drugs of dubious legality.
It's Super Bowl Thanksgiving. Super Bowl Saturday, Thanksgiving.
You're too busy watching and
too busy
it's an
watching the
in-game
game.
wager, but
guess
what?
You got 2 buckets of some beautiful Chex Mix, freshly made by your wife, who's a man, by the way.
Yep.
And he's like, honey, I made the Chex Mix. And everyone's like, ooh, you're gay now? I'm like, yep, I'm fucking gay. And then you go, hold on, everybody, I'm going to get a couple of cold ones out from the garage.
Yeah.
You go out in the garage. Everybody's enjoying the game. You're out there gambling on your phone.
In-game wagering.
Checking DMs. You can see the
beating off
red
to women 'cause
notification.
you're not actually gay.
It's like you thought, nice breezy message. Hey, I know we haven't seen each other since middle school, but I just saw you on LinkedIn, and I know this isn't my name. I know, I'm not, my name isn't Frank. You thought I was just some branch manager over Wachovia, but hey, yeah, it's me. I was just wondering if,
You wanted to catch up.
Yeah, and then you see now the profile's disappeared. Well, maybe there's something wrong with the website.
Yeah, the internet, you reset the router.
So, you do a private browsing session, create a new profile, and it's still there. So you're blocked, I guess. And the garage doors are already closed. You're already in your car. Might as well just start it up and see what happens. You got a couple of Ambien in your pocket. You pop them, doze off, and then
you wake up, and your phone's buzzing.
Nope, you don't wake up.
The in-game wager you placed went through.
Your wife finds it, and your wife is like, oh my God, he's dead. My gay husband is dead. But what's this on his phone? He failed to cheat on me, and then his in-game wagering, he bet the farm, and now I have enough money to get that medicine
to get it chopped off, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah. And that's what BetDSI can do for you, folks.
And I don't know if this historical analogy is going to hold up that I came up with on CumTown. Let's try it out, though. So if CumTown was the Roman Empire, tafs, or the tafs podcast, was its Byzantine decline. Maybe with some minor differences here and there. tafs podcast is centered in Tel Aviv instead of Constantinople. Adam would be the Theodora of the show, as he prostituted himself to many men before ascending to the top. But the show ending like this was prophesized more or less by Nick and Stav in this clip from the show.
It's a life of people remembering when the show used to be good and then calling me on my home phone to call me Diddy Kong.
Because you've unplugged,
right?
But you still got doxxed somehow.
Yeah, and at this point, I'm like just completely racist, beating my 19-year-old girlfriend.
Saying you're gonna start your own show.
I got my own show that
I'm on
people
Sirius
listen to.
still.
Yeah, Adam's on Sirius.
Adam's on Sirius.
Adam has his own cable network.
Yeah.
I was saying the other day, Adam's probably taken life insurance policies out on the both of us,
Yeah.
and we
Yes.
just don't know. He hasn't said anything.
Mm-hmm. He's like, I can drive right now, guys.
Yeah.
Just fucking drives the fucking RV off a cliff and jumps out at the last second. Like, oh my God.
My best friend.
My best friends are dead.
I guess I'll just take the $6 million.
For context, if you're for some reason listening to this and don't know what CumTown is or was, it was a comedy podcast from 2016 to 2022, starring 3 stand-up comedians in New York City, Nick Mullen, Stavros Halkias, and Adam Friedland. It was a show where the 3 friends would hang out and talk about whatever. There weren't any set topics or news events of the day. Ad reads would often go on for 20 to 30 minutes at a time. And that would often be a good thing because it usually meant Nick was riffing and the outcome would be hilarious. CumTown, while not having any structure or preparation involved, did have repeated joke formats, both of the shorter and longer variety, usually with the punchline being some celebrity or character promoting that they're, quote, gay. Now, you may be asking how a show can last for 6 years and enjoy this massive amount of success, where the same joke is repeated on every episode. And my answer would be that, 1, there were also jokes about racial stereotypes, so keep that in mind. That's another layer, an important layer of the show. And secondly, you would be shocked at how funny that joke still is each time. And sure, maybe it loses some of its luster after a while, but it will come around. It'll come back around to being funny again. Just wait. Also, even if I think about the, cultural context of the time period, it makes the joke even funnier to me. When you had people like Kevin Spacey being accused of, let's say, various things, and his response was basically, oh, by the way, I'm gay. Well, Mr. Spacey, I guess it's case closed then, huh? If you're gay, we can't possibly charge you with a crime.
It's the year of the Corvette.
And now we're back.
And I have my own Corvette.
And I'm going to drive it.
And I'm gay.
Oh, no.
I'm going to have.
And one more thing.
And by the way,
Also,
I forgot to mention I'm gay.
and the surprise.
Mr. Finch, what have you done?
The British are back, and this time we're gay.
We're going to have sex with all of you guys.
We're going to have gay sex. Bring about 400 years of gay British rule like you've never seen.
And by the way, I'm gay.
Mr. Finch,
And there's not been one substitute for the show, for 3 hosts just being perfect complements to one another in this format, and nothing that hits the same peaks of being funny. Even if there are a ton of absolutely awful episodes of CumTown, where like 97% of that episode is garbage, and the last 3 is only mildly amusing, and setting aside that they completely tanked the last year or year and a half of the show on purpose, it's still, to me, the best to ever do it. The vast majority of comedy podcasts either aren't funny or just don't have much replay value with the jokes. It's all sort of vaguely comedic, maybe entertaining, but there's just not much that stays with you over the longer term. This show separated itself in that the bits that they riffed out have a timeless quality to them, even if they're really stupid. They're not completely dependent on context or current events, but instead they operate more like hearing an old song that you once knew again and again and going back to it. And one thing about listening to that moronic podcast is how it utterly ruins your brain for anything comedy related after. at least until you stop listening to CumTown for a while. Not only the phrase, I'm gay, being a punchline for everything you say in life, but also just changing the lyrics to any song that you ever hear. For example, I heard the song Touch of Grey by Grateful Dead earlier today. And that obviously in my brain became everything's got a touch of gay, and the chorus goes, I will be bi, I will kiss guys. And that will happen for just like every song. The changing of lyrics is what Nick said ruined one of his heterosexual relationships. It totally infects your brain. I had stopped myself from doing this until I recently began listening to a bunch of episodes in order to do this show. In this segment, now it's just back automatic, where I change every fucking song lyric.
I was sucking on a dick late one night when my roommate came in to that awful sight. And he shrieked and screamed, and I had to explain it was a joke.
It was a joke.
That I was doing.
I'm not gay.
It was a joke.
It was a funny joke.
It was just a joke.
What you saw
was just a joke.
I am not gay.
I am not gay.
Please show me your phone.
Don't tweet that out. Let me see your phone. Just let me see your phone.
Just let me see your phone.
Yeah.
Your fucking phone.
Yep.
Please don't post any pics.
Don't post pictures of my dick. Going into that man's ass.
Just that guy just fucking fleeing the scene immediately.
Yeah. Well, super fans, we got a new Twitter account.
Oh, yeah.
At CumTown Records.
That's
if you
right.
enjoy CumTown Clásico, podcast
Compounding
Clásico.
classical.
Clásico.
The good kind of
The
podcast.
good kind of
Finally,
podcast. There are no
CumTown's good.
facts. Being,
Nothing gay being
no one
said.
is inserting facts. Wait, William Faulkner didn't write All Dogs Go to Heaven. It's Don Blue.
Get well soon, Adam. He's
Yeah.
sick, and I'm praying for our boy.
He has AIDS. He got it from being gay.
Another joke format would be Nick posing the question, how about this? It'd be something like, what if it was Mike's Hard R Lemonade? Which may actually be a joke that they did. I'm not sure if that's one I actually came up with at the store or I just remembered it from the show. And that's the real beauty of a CumTown bit. Just endless varieties of the same central idea. Either way, Nick would throw out something like that, and Stav would laugh, and then there'd potentially be some further riff going on if Nick felt like it that day. And I know I started listening to CumTown sometime in 2019. YouTube, I have to give credit to that site for introducing me to the show through the fan-made clips that still continue to be posted to this very day. And I'm not sure what bit I listened to first, but let's throw a clip in here to keep the ambiance going.
Hebrewish? Yeah, I think that's what it is. Can't remember for sure. Something like that.
Fuck. Damn, remember how much it sucked when Trump won? This is a year ago. It was a year ago today.
Yeah, it was.
I was on a fucking weird date. I went on a date.
All your dates are weird. They're always at like noon.
No, that was one time, dude. Relax.
No, it's happened numerous times.
Well, you gotta get a brunch sometimes. You hit a fucking flea market.
You do the brunch after you have sex with
That's
them.
right. You go on like first dates in the middle of the day.
That's happened.
least sexy.
That's happened
You're like,
twice.
I'm gonna try and go
strategy.
smash with this woman that only would allow me to meet her at a CarMax at 10 p.m. or 10 a.m.
Listen, man, you know, shoot or shoot.
She said we have to meet in the middle of Union Square. Lots of witnesses.
No cops.
Yeah. I'm gonna have sex, guys. With
First
this
of all,
woman
that's been
that
a
making me do a
couple times you
Skype
fucked.
interview at 3 p.m.
Anyway, motherfuckers.
She said, "Do either of you have a bathroom scale I have to stand on while on webcam to prove to her that I'm under 300 pounds?"
I've been under 300 pounds for years now. It's been 5 years. Thank you.
I'm fucking pissed at that stupid fucking barista.
And this type of shit was being broadcast in my ears for a solid 2 or 3 years, whether I was being subjected to curfews or driving around or taking a long flight or whatever. I distinctly remember one time getting stuck in DC area traffic for 3 hours or so on a trip one time, and trying not to piss my pants, while also encouraging it by listening and laughing to some long compilation mix of the show. But let's take a quick break, and I'll be back with more on CumTown.
Need some spice in your life? Naughty or nice, you just gotta visit Perry Pocketpuss's incredible showroom of orifices, vibrational devices, and a whole lot more. Right near the convention center and fresh off the highway on the east side of Tulsa, Oklahoma. We feature toys beyond your wildest fantasies, fully mopped bathrooms, and weird poly people looking for a third who's game for anything. On Thursdays, it's lubricant night, where we put our fists up like we're a bunch of goddamned black nationalists. But we can't tell you just where those hands go. Stop in today or call ahead at 1-900-PP for me. On LQS, it's our Sunday night movie of the week, Tomorrow 11 Guys. Secret agent Jimmy Bondage is back after his last strenuous mission.
I didn't know Christmas came twice a year.
I didn't come at all, Jimmy.
Oh. Who cares?
Now, he's being reprimanded by his superiors.
002.5. Her Majesty's government will simply not pay for your fourth fanny reconstructive surgery.
Bondage, you're a Cold War relic. Why do you continue to sleep with the Russians when it's no longer required?
Old habits die hard.
Chasing a Chinese woman.
I've lost a
crowd of Chinese. Are you telling me that you've lost sight of Agent Waigu?
They all look the same.
And trying to stop another villain holding the world hostage. This time with an engorgement ray.
Ah, that's where you're wrong, Mr. Bondage. With my ray gun now complete, I can embarrass all male world leaders with untimely erections while giving speeches in front of large crowds, thus ushering in an age of tucking. Behold, your own Prime Minister. I don't see anything. Well, I mean, the ray is working. Hold on, I'll fix it. It appears that your Prime Minister, Mr. Bondage, is actually a micro-minister. But I assure you, anyone of a normal size would be blushing in front of the world right about now. Didn't let fame go to his head.
That's Sunday at 8 p.m., 9 Central. Only on LQS.
Explore the edges of your reality, dissolve boundaries, and weave in and out of traffic while battling a hallucination of Quetzalcoatl. Due to some kind of loophole in federal law, or I guess a states' rights kind of thing. It's all here, and it's all legal now at Marty's Fungus. We're right off A1A on the beautiful space coast of Central Florida. A short trip before your long, strange journey to enlightened thoughts, nonsensical political beliefs, backpacking to Nepal, and catching an antibiotic-resistant infection from a girl with dreadlocks.
I let the Indian guru touch my body.
At Marty's, we've got lights to let you grow, and gummies that'll make you have your own Sputnik moment. Live like a black light painting at Marty's Fungus.
That's so mystical.
Wow, that's really fascinating stuff. Anyway, how about instead of Scarface, it's Gayface? And there was a story last year, I think it was about a guy in Turkey who got arrested for looking too gay. So Gayface is going to be the film based on that. And Tony Montana is a guy who gets shipped to Miami from Cuba for looking too gay. You thought Omar was straight because Salsa said so? The jokes of CumTown really do set the tone of the show. But beyond whatever stupid political nonsense people try to attach to the show and the jokes themselves, the three people and how their personalities, both good and bad, complemented one another took CumTown to another level. Each of the three has a distinct personality and role on the show. Like, CumTown was a perfect vehicle for Nick Mullen and his sense of humor. It really was an ideal setup for what he's best at. Not too much structure. He needs to dominate the conversation, and he needs to be egged on because he will often bail out of a funny premise too soon if no one like pushes him to keep going with it. And when you need someone to fulfill the role of egging, an egg roll, if you will, you obviously think of Stav. Not only laughing at Nick's jokes, but encouraging it, or saying something stupid that will send Nick's brain in another direction and then heighten the joke even more. So much of the show could be determined by Nick Mullen's mood or mental state that day. His manic and depressive states that could either be great for content or an absolute disaster. Which is why Stavros works so well. He's probably the best person to play off of Nick, because he knows the right amount to get involved and also not step on his jokes. And you can listen to episodes when they had guests on, or if you've listened to Nick on other podcasts, there are some people who either can't get out of his way or cannot set him up properly. Even Adam on the newer shows, podcast episodes, wasn't good at this, which is why that show was not good. The rare times that Nick actually wanted to do a bit, Adam was just not great at facilitating that. Though Adam is essential to the mix of CumTown. As a muse, a punching bag, and having his dad become a recurring fictionalized character. That was very important.
It movie sucks. A much better one with Matthew Perry is Fools Rush In.
Yeah, I've seen that one.
Yeah. I've never seen that.
That was on HBO during
Adam had
for
the
a long
Fools
time.
Rush In video game for both Sega Saturn and
I did,
SNES.
yeah. It's true.
You had to play it on both
It was an
consoles.
RPG.
He was like, Dad, the graphics are different. I need it for both systems.
Well, I'm going to have to go have gay sex to earn enough money to buy it.
Whoops, it looks like someone has to go have gay sex for money again. Oh, geez, I don't like doing it, but Daddy needs his video games.
Just you go into Adam's room, it's every system ever made. Japanese imports, a full arcade is in their house. Anything for my boy.
Anything for Adam, I guess.
He's a good man. He made a lot of sacrifices for his family.
He seems, on some level, to be the most psychologically stable one of the bunch. He can take being the butt of the joke in ways the others cannot, particularly Stav, but also Nick. But at the same time, he also has the need to be seen as being cool, especially by black men. And he's also a compulsive liar about inconsequential things. Both of which are sources of some of the funniest material in the show's history, like the Cool Adam episode. His mere presence of being the third mic has set off so many classic bits from the show. But I want to run a clip here where he actually made the funny joke and finally got Nick for once.
Well, here's this.
And it's a self.
I never have a problem at a restaurant. Never have a problem with food service.
That's not true.
When?
Do you remember one? I don't remember one.
Which one?
We were at Hooters and you asked if there could be more guys working there.
That is true. I'm remembering that now.
Yeah.
You do that at every Hooters.
Men with
You did say that when we were at Hooters. You threw a fucking tantrum, bro.
You were
You
crying.
threw a tantrum.
You were on the floor. Where are the
You're like, why aren't there guys working here?
But they're wearing pants where the top of the dick is coming out.
Yeah. Just the shaft.
Yeah.
You can't see glands.
Yeah.
But hold on, this will.
I thought this place was called Balls.
This will eat up plenty of time. It's just an owl with nuts.
You see the
Hooters logo. It's still there's an owl, but the logo's moved down to his nuts.
It's so good. Hooters for gay guys.
Dude, that's awesome.
That's awesome.
But that was a Twitter account, wasn't it? Gay Hooters.
Maybe,
perhaps.
Yeah, that's probably Adam saw that for sure.
No, I didn't.
He's just telling a story.
I'm just telling a story about when we were at Hooters trying to have a sexy time with girls.
Yeah, me and Adam were about to close.
Dude, I was negging the target heavy.
Yeah, Adam had his Air Pilot glasses on.
I was
like, his top hat.
I was like, you work here? What are you, fucking poor?
What are you poor with?
Did you get
fat
molested?
tits? You probably got molested.
Adam had his aviators on because he just came off shooting his movie Top Gun, which is about a man that gets forced to suck dick at gunpoint.
No, that's not true.
Yeah, and he plays call sign victim.
That is true.
Yeah, but I'm the top.
No.
Yeah, it's a guy.
No,
who gets,
no.
A guy gets.
And that audience had
forced
a, audience
to
had
fuck
a problem
another
with
guy
that.
in the ass as the top.
No
yeah,
chance.
It's true.
No.
With a gun.
Nope.
No.
No chance. Didn't happen. Anyways, this will be a nice cruise off. Verizon owns all the copper.
I love it.
A lot of the show's popularity, or at least the popular narrative as it goes, is the so-called friendship simulator aspect of it. The idealized notion that you're hanging out with your friends from school, or more specifically for a lot of people, their, quote, best friend Nick, and making fun of things for an hour twice per week. Listening to it all, you get to know so much of their psychological tics and just a bunch of stories from their personal lives. It creates a weird dynamic, but also why the show can be so great to listen to. The jokes are formulaic, but it has an authentic vibe because nothing about the show is polished. It's also what gives the show any sense of continuity. The episodes can sort of be categorized into different eras. So you had the cocaine episodes, Nick's mental breakdown episodes, Stav's different weight loss solution episodes every year, like becoming the 10,000 step bastard, or when he broke his foot. You had the cabin trips, the soundboard era. You get these different sides of these three people in these snapshots. It's funny, but there's often very little of substance being said.
Anyways, we got new gear, so we can do this.
I'm used to that noise.
No, you're not. No, you're not, bitch.
Yeah.
No, you're not.
We spent $6,000.
We need a wrong. We need a wrong. And a buzz. Your dick.
Silence! We got that one. That was fun. I like my saddle leather phone case, so I'm going to stick with that. I'm going to keep that. But the Ridge wallet
reminds you of riding horses.
Silence! Anyways. My Ridge wallet.
Keep going.
Just keep good.
Just continue.
It's been good.
You don't have to laugh that hard. Stop. It's not that.
The silence is so good.
It is really funny.
The silence drop is so good.
I admit it.
Goddamn.
Listening through the entire catalog of the show is interesting because you get to hear them all have success for the very first time and also come to hate it. This was still crazy at the time for a podcast to hit over 6 figures per month in Patreon support. What develops is this strange mix from all of them feeling like they don't deserve the money for how stupid the show is, to also acting entitled to the money and being resentful of the audience for long stretches of time. So Nick starts the show. He's living with a Chinese family as a stand-up comedian who's still trying to get recognition, mostly as a feature act. We learn throughout the show that he's a high school dropout. He had a string of shitty jobs like GameStop, call centers, and I think he was also driving trucks around as some kind of delivery guy during early episodes of the show. He spent most of his 20s as a drunk, and now he gets a ton of recognition through this dumb but incredibly unique podcast instead of stand-up comedy or writing for TV shows. On the one hand, you're doing funnier bits than anything that's on TV. You've created classic characters and material that's always being replayed up to this day, while on the other hand, you're just stuck creatively, bounded by the same exact format that you like backed yourself into. It's easy to see why the show burned out even before they officially stopped creating new episodes.
I love just
cushy.
blasting coffee in the morning, getting myself really fucking wired, feeling like absolute dog shit, and then fixing it with different drugs.
With CBD, with
by
high
smoking,
quality CBD from Cushy
which
Dreams.
I used to, when I was in my drinking days, the fucking, that 11 a.m. to noon switch where you go from too much coffee to when the boozing starts.
Little fucking whiskey.
And the booze and the coffee do the like arm wrestler in front of the globe.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
you get like 20 minutes where it's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Where it's the best.
Where you found your cocktail.
And then the alcohol starts winning.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I had one day I was in some museum.
Mm-hmm.
And I had drank too much coffee, and then I started drinking beer in the the museum cafe.
Respect.
And I started getting a little drunk.
Getting drunk off $11 museum beers?
Yeah. And I was like, this is great.
This rocks.
It's a perfect morning.
I love culture.
I'm a genius. I'm an intellectual, and I'm trashed. Just going up to women like, you ever look at this painting?
What's up, bitch? You ever talk about Picasso?
The museum. Get away from
at the like Natural History Museum talking about paintings.
Yes. Yeah.
Where the fuck? Where are the gay ass rocks here?
In Frank, her diary. I've read it. Get away, Masha. Come with us, please. Sir, do not talk to my daughter. She's not allowed to have sex with anyone but me.
To round things out here, I don't know what else to talk about of the show except for some of the classic characters, bits, and returning guests that made CumTown so memorable. Guests like Ian Fidance, probably the best recurring fourth mic on the show, a true spectacle. Sadly, we'll never get his spin-off show of CumTown 2.0. He's like a bisexual Dan Ninen. Just kidding. But here he is, being Ian before being Ian.
Guys, talked about my European tour.
We plugged it.
And a bunch of people came out, and it was
See
really
that?
nice. I
That's
really want to
because
thank
we're your
you.
friend and we support
And
you.
thank you,
I
everyone,
think what
for
we
coming
said
out.
was a bunch of European people like, oh, there is a gay clown that is coming to do a show.
Honk, honk.
Oh, my God. Ian brought his own slide whistle.
Unreal. Unbelievable. Jesus fucking Christ. Unreal.
Do it again.
I mean, I don't even know how to process
Do
that.
it again,
I can't
Ian.
even laugh. Yeah.
This is
crazy.
the best.
Ian.
Unbelievable.
In anticipation that he'd call you a gay clown, too. It was just so fitting.
He knew.
The timing was so spot on.
That's great.
I am. That's the best thing that's ever happened.
All right,
dude.
goodbye.
Other guests like Wardell, Jamel, Jordan Jensen, Mike Racine, Tim Dillon, Soder, and I forget what other comedians make an appearance on the program. Then we had great guests like Gene DiNapoli, Bam Margera, Scumbag Vinny, and the idea of Tom Myers. Some kind of abstraction. But there's no real him. Not even an entity or something illusory. But beyond the guest, what we all liked, the number of random characters that you could talk about is almost endless. Gay Eric, Japanese man using Siri, Clarence the Baker, Molestrios, the African guy who says, "You must never respect a woman." From R2.2 to the Native American guy sleeping in the sporting goods store.
And then we were all gay. Together. On the mountain. Many moons ago.
Excuse me. The Cabela's is closing, fellas.
Yeah.
So if you could get out of the tents.
Yeah. If I was a homeless Native American guy, I would just sneak into a museum and try and sit down with it. That would be my move. And be like, be very still. And they will think you're one of the exhibits. They're like, all right, Mike, you got to go.
Okay, Mikey.
All right. Yeah, didn't work last week. Not going to work this time.
I'll give you head.
My people have an expression. Fuck you. Bitch.
All right, Mike. Well, you're Puerto Rican, pal.
Yeah, well, some of us have a different definition of what native means. So
You're a Puerto Rican man wearing beads in his hair.
yeah, well, I voted for Elizabeth Warren. So. Yeah. You're wearing a Yankees fitted and an 8-ball jacket. You got an Averex jacket on, Mike. I know you're not Native American.
Hey, I'll give you head for $20.
If you let me stay, I'll suck your dick.
Well, now we're talking, Mikey.
Mm-hmm.
I personally like a lot of the Italians that Nick came up with. Not just the self-pissed union guy, but more obscure characters like the guy named Infantilet Pianis. And I swear there was one named Gay Sex Bachixio. I tried to find a clip of this. It might have just been a throwaway joke, though I'm pretty sure that it exists within the hundreds of hours of CumTown content. There's an Italian guy named Gay Sex Bachixio. Other characters to note, you could go with the Viva La Bam, Jackass, that whole bit that spanned across multiple episodes. My personal favorite characters, Charlie Rose, Michael Douglas, Meerschaum, Adam's dad, Robert Duvall, Jeff Goldblum, and the entire cast of The Big Chill 2. And honorable mention, Sleepy Joe Biden.
Biden, in a stunning fireside chat, announces plan to reopen the internment camps.
A return to normalcy.
It's just nice, dude.
We want
it's nice to be able to go to brunch again.
We want a new deal. You got to make sure you don't get a Jew deal.
That's true.
You want to make sure I don't Jew deal a new deal.
That's absolutely correct, Joseph.
I will say, as a Jew, I can say this, the $1,400.
Well, you can suck my cock.
That reeks of a Jew deal.
Yeah.
That is a Jew deal.
Yeah.
Listen, Buster, we can bust nuts together.
We can either have
we can have cashews.
America's first wigger president, Joseph Robinette Biden.
We can have cashews.
I said, well, how to do a fireside chat? I said, why don't we do a wigger side chat?
We can bust nuts.
We can have cashews together, or we can have issues. I went up to the king of the Japanese and I said, listen here, dragon face. If you want my nuts, you can suck on them. Now, if you want to bust nuts together, that's a different story.
Can bust nuts.
That's a different Tom, Dick, and Harry.
Shouts out to Robinette, man.
Mm-hmm. All right, there's got to be other bits that I'm not thinking of that I wanted to include. Let me switch out of Prime Video and into YouTube and see if I can find what I'm thinking of. They really want me to watch fucking Time Cop on here. Oh, hell yeah. Craig T. Nelson and Coach is now included with Prime. I might just do a full watch through of that and comment on every episode. Hold on, I'm scrolling through, I swear. I'll go to YouTube in a second. I just want to see what else. What movie I can watch. Rent Wayne's World for $3.99. Or subscribe to Paramount Plus. How about instead of Wayne's World, it's Brain's World? And it's just two guys getting sucked off in a basement. Wayne, why you not have sex with me? Cassandra, I'm gay. They probably did that joke on the show. I'm sure I picked that off an old episode. Oh yeah. So here is the bit that I wanted to play. My boot cheeks. My boot cheeks. I guess I'll have to add the clip in here, but let's give it a listen.
They put me in gulag where they fuck my butt cheeks. I mean,
they fucked my butt cheeks.
They bent me over and they say, you have been dissident, and now it is time to get fucked in your butt cheeks. I say, why do you fuck me in my butt cheeks? My butt cheeks.
My butt cheeks.
They put a penis in my butt cheeks. I become so painfully fucked in my butt cheeks that I cannot walk. I try to take a shit in my ass. My butt cheeks hurt so much.
I'm still thinking about Brain's World. It gets to the last scene of the movie where they broadcast Tia Carey's band into the back of the executive's limo, and he shows up at the house and he's just like, "Hi, I'm Tommy Shitstain of Shitstain Records. I heard your band playing in my car, and you guys suck. However, you're one hot shiny broad, Cassandra. So I'm going to pay you for sexual favors. Then I'll use my music industry connections in Hollywood. I can put you on what we call the circuit. A few weeks, you'll spend a few weeks on a container ship, and you'll be in Dubai serving as a squat toilet for some kind of Arab. It's a shitty job, but it'll give you an Hermes bag." And then the camera to end the movie just pans to Mike Myers, who has the same look as when Kanye said that George Bush doesn't care about black people. Now, it's all officially done, and so is this segment. It's being put away for good. You've got to put childish things away, I hear, anyway. But put them in a box. So I leave you with this clip that really encapsulates the show.
I'll get the levels right
That's
after
right.
we start.
Fidel Blast Hole is what we ended off
come on,
with.
man.
I wanted to. Oh, my bad.
Yeah.
You start over.
No, it's all right. I mean, I don't want to. I don't want to risk.
You said, "Oh, I guess that's true. This comes out before."
I don't want to risk. Yeah.
Well, guys, so we're continuing our 2-part series.
If you want to understand what we're talking about, why is this echoing?
It keeps doing that. Let's let that.
I hate my voice. Ew.
Don't play it up. Just talk normal. It's bad enough.
You guys have to listen to this.
Yeah, why does it every time you reset make Adam echo?
Keep talking, Adam.
Hello.
Keep talking.
Hello.
All right, go again.
Check.
All right, that's good.
Okay. I don't. Give me a normal voice.
You sound awesome.
We've
dude.
done this a million times.
No, we haven't.
Yes,
It's
we
been a
have.
while.
First
of all, we've done it like 9 times, and it's
Remember
been a while.
that song? It's been a while since I
You see your pussy.
What I like about this is it makes Adam interrupt himself.
Right.
Yeah.
Now you know how it feels.
No, I actually get interrupted more than I do.
No way.
No, they actually study.
There was a Jewish guy who listened to the show. He's like, Adam, I made the spreadsheet to prove that you were the one that.
Why does he have to be Jewish?
He just was.
Yeah.
Nick's just saying what happened.
I'm just saying what happened.
Well, what you would describe that about other types of people?
No one can understand what you're saying. Anyways.
Yeah.
What?
It would behoove you to be quiet.
Just stop it. Stop this. Check.
No, come on. Yeah. Put him in the box. Put his ass in the box.
I can't even sort of make out what he's saying.
Hi, I'm former Tactical Command Staff Sergeant Garrett On Belay Houlihan. Big retailers don't want you to know about this. It's a tactical flashlight for freedom-loving patriots with a beam that can shine light on your survivalist food bucket for up to half a mile away. Take it from me, a former Ranger SEAL who roughly served in the aerial infantry demolition scouts, that this tactical scope and flashlight combination will keep your family safe. It was created by NASA using space-age materials that they tried to hide from the public. That's right, both the government and big retail is scared of you possessing the power of a made-in-the-USA, tactical Patriot Pocket Constitution freedom flashlight and scope set can give you. In fact, if you act now, we'll throw in 6 emergency tactical food buckets for an $125 upcharge for shipping and handling. Beyond that, our first 80,000 patriots will also receive this tactical t-shirt. Hand-stitched by Honduran immigrants in our factory in Dalton, Georgia, this shirt is designed to sculpt to your unique physique. Large and well-defined arms and traps with a doughy midsection, a perfect pairing with our strategically tactical wrap around sunglasses. They're not only stylish, but are great for taking selfies in your crew cab, which can be used in profile pictures. An undeniably classic look of masculinity for when you're exercising your First Amendment rights. And as a super bonus, you can purchase our tactical commemorative coin made from 999 pure gold. Emblazoned with an eagle carrying a food bucket in his talons, it's sure to be a family heirloom for centuries to come. And it's yours for only $800 an ounce above the spot price of gold. Take it from a tactical operator such as myself, who for some reason is now doing pre-roll ads on BitChute. When trouble's coming, see it from a mile away.
Well, since it's now Super Bowl Sunday, I'm going to try and record here before the game starts in a few hours. I'm not too interested in watching this, but I took the Eagles plus 110 on the money line when the lines came out, I guess 2 weeks ago at this point, whenever the NFC and AFC championships were over and the matchup was set. So, if it turns out that I'm incorrect when this episode is released, keep in mind, I didn't watch any NFL in the past 5+ years other than a Super Bowl here or there. But the Eagles are going to fly, and they're going to make me however much money. I don't remember. It's probably like less than $10 or $10. So I only have like $540 in that account. I also haven't watched any basketball since 2016. I was obsessed with both NBA and college ball for a long time, growing up into my teenage years, but I don't really care anymore. So I have very little connection to the goings-on in the league, outside of seeing commentary videos by various sports talking heads here and there. But then the Luka trade happened, so I wanted to go over that. And it's probably too late now because it's been out for a while, but who cares? I've never seen him play. I only recently found out that NBA teams now shoot like 40 or 50 three-pointers a game. A stat that will assure that I absolutely won't watch basketball anytime again soon or ever. Like, holy shit, how do you watch people just jack up threes and, I guess, keep playing ISO ball the rest of the time? The fuck is the point of that? But this trade has piqued my interest due to the vast conspiracies it has launched as a result. I don't care if the team is ruined, or the Mavs or the Lakers win or didn't win the trade. Outside of the rampant speculation I get to engage in as to the reasons why it happened. Though maybe the GM is just really dumb or smart like a fox and is proven correct over time. And there's nothing to this trade beyond him making a big move to shake things up and build a defense wins championship team. So, from a compensation perspective, this trade doesn't match up. AD is much older, and there's no real history in the league of trading a young superstar like Luka who didn't just force his way out. And that is the foundational level of all of these conspiracies. And if you know the history of the NBA, it's one riddled with talk of fixes and other conspiracies going on. You can go from the gambling of Tim Donaghy, the Kings-Lakers Western Conference Finals, the Patrick Ewing lottery, the MJ gambling murder conspiracy that supposedly led him to play baseball. And there's probably some others I'm forgetting. But this is what made me love the league. I loved basketball. I played basketball when I was a kid. I went to games. I fucking loved basketball. And the NBA and all the conspiracies just made it more entertaining to me. Even though they said it was, the league's fixed. I like this shit. These were some of the earliest conspiracies that I got into. Personally, my favorite NBA stories are the cocaine era tales, when everyone was yacked out of their minds and getting suspended. Not just the death of Len Bias, but also the Phoenix Suns. I forget which year, like half the team got fucking kicked out. And they were all absorbed into some criminal elements. That's not really a conspiracy outside of, I guess, criminal conspiracy. But not in the league conspiring or some other nefarious land deals going on. It was just a wild time period. Maybe there were. I don't know how deep that rabbit hole goes because I don't think anyone's produced a good book on that. Now the Mavs situation with Luka. The team is saying it's all about defense winning championships and that Luka is a fat boy who has injury concerns because his conditioning sucks. Hey man, I ran yesterday. My conditioning sucks too. But you know what? Me and Luka are still top fucking dogs. Maybe that's the actual truth. I don't know. The team is selling high and not giving him the $345 to $350 million supermax deal that he was supposed to get, and he ends up having an injury-plagued career like Grant Hill. Both of them were top young players before injuries sidelined Grant and potentially Luka. That's the thinking here, at least. Now, I have heard that the orders came from the top down to the general manager to execute this trade. A real Order 66 situation. This was after the weekend, where it was being reported that it was the GM's decision to make alone. He did the deal, as they're in win now mode, so he went for Anthony Davis instead of a haul of young players or draft picks. Okay, fine. Again, who gives a shit about basketball and the basketball side of things? In this house, we believe in conspiracy. The first part of it, of most of these conspiracies, are the owners are trying to pull a major league movie situation, make the team so bad and fans so disgusted that they can just leverage a move to a new city. Everyone is saying Vegas, due to the ownership also being the Las Vegas Sands majority shareholders. The late Sheldon Adelson started the company and built up the former Vegas properties. Adelson's family now owns the Mavs. What I know about them, big donors to Trump for multiple cycles, with a heavy interest in Israel. And Sheldon, the late Sheldon Adelson, one of the last things he did, supposedly, was to charter a flight for a guy convicted of spying, I think, on the United States. I think that guy might have been a U.S. citizen, and he got convicted of spying for Israel. Sheldon Adelson, also born in the United States, when that guy got out of prison, supposedly let him use his private plane, and they flew the convicted spy to Israel. That's kind of weird, right? Like, imagine some Italian guy stole sensitive information from the U.S. government, and then an American of Italian descent uses his private plane to fly the guy back to Italy after he gets out of prison. Strangely, that's not a big deal for the head or former head. I'm pretty sure he was near death at the time that this happened, but he was still the head of a major U.S. corporation to fly a convicted spy to another country, the country he was accused of spying for. So I think it is actually that worst scenario where both of these people, both the spy and Adelson, are born and raised in the United States. That guy was spying for another country, and then Adelson lets him use the plane to go to Israel. I don't even think it's going back to Israel. 2 U.S. citizens for some completely unknown reason doing such a thing. I can't imagine it. Is this all very similar to that one documentary that Kyrie Irving shared a few years ago? Is that what happened? Why didn't he get traded? He plays for the Mavs. He shared a certain documentary. I've never seen that one, but I hear things about it. Interesting things. But as far as moving the team to Vegas, I will point out, aside from the corporate headquarters, that the Sands Corp exited the Las Vegas market a few years ago entirely. So the Venetian and the Palazzo and the Convention Center complex that's part of that, that's all been sold to someone else. So most of their revenue is now in Macau, since I looked it up, 5 out of 6 of their resorts are in Macau. The other is in Singapore. So I don't know if they're actually pursuing that as an option. In this iteration of the conspiracy that people are pushing, they'd have to build or acquire another casino in Las Vegas and I guess build an arena to connect to it. This could be done, but that's a long way away. I don't know if they're building from scratch in this scenario. That'd be like 5 or 10 year plan to get it done. But their new thing is them trying to build a casino in Dallas and somehow integrate the Mavs and the new arena into it. I'm not sure how this one will work, but thus far they have not been able to be successful in getting enough support from the Texas legislature to make it happen. So they're using the Luka trade as leverage as a part of a real estate deal. The real estate development and casino profits matter, not the actual success of the basketball team. The NBA in this conspiracy wanted the attention and did a handshake deal or a wink wink nod nod kind of thing to make sure the LA market got a new superstar, a new face of the league moving forward. Jerry West, Chamberlain, Elgin Baylor, Kobe, Shaq, Magic, Kareem, LeBron. All of them pass through LA. It's Luka's time. LA always ends up with a superstar. And in exchange, as the theory goes, the league won't stand in the way of the Mavs ownership moving the team to supposedly Vegas. And then there's the part where Nike also gets to benefit with Luka in the LA market. The Mavs GM is a former Nike executive with a longtime connection to Rob Pelinka, the GM of the Lakers and former agent of one Kobe Bryant. Interesting little theory, Mr. Bond. Which ties it all together, including why they only negotiated with the Lakers about potential trade packages. The counterpoint I heard is that Anthony Davis was the only high-level player that they could realistically get in order to win now. Again, I don't know what the current league is like, but the haul you would always be able to get for a superstar is much more than what the Mavs got, especially considering a 25-year-old superstar. A trade of this nature is unprecedented. Plus, you start to add a few more teams into the mix. You get a 3 or 4 team deal going. You probably could have gotten plenty of help to try to win now. A star, a couple of high-level starters, future draft picks, a 3-point specialist, something, a 3-and-D guy. But no, they didn't even try. I don't know. I like these conspiracies, as always. And I would like to be able to be playing at that high level. Not in basketball, but like in terms of deals in real estate, owning a casino. That'd be sick. To be someone who can just fucking completely decimate the standing of an institution and get an entire city completely pissed off at you. No, all these people spending their time talking about quiet luxury and hiding wealth signifiers. Oh, dress down. Bitch, I want a solid gold toilet that I can shit in once and then have it replaced each time without flushing. That's the kind of rich guy I want to be. Like, I see all these people get rich and then they're like, oh, minimalism. Oh, let's get rid of all of our shit. Yeah, that's a nice thing to do when you're poor and you just want to like mobility, but what's the point of being rich? There's just don't have anything. Fuck that. I'm going to make this a financial podcast. Really get down to my investments. Like I saw Tapestry stock almost tripled recently. I own that. I used to own that for a nice 20% gain. Had you followed me and held it longer than I did, you would have tripled your money. Superverse coin. I actually sold that for a triple. So yeah, I missed out on Trump coin, but I got that before. So you have your Coach, your Tapestry stock. You invest in luggage. You invest in shit coins. And you invest in stable stalwarts like Coca-Cola and Starbucks. That's my plan. You follow that, you'll be a rich man. I believe in big beverage and big tobacco. Sure, the robotics and AI revolution are going to allow companies like, Amazon to capture more and more market share and enter these new product markets that you haven't even thought about yet. That's how advanced things are going to get. But I believe the AI will absorb so much information in advertising as it scoops up more information, it will become curious about dopamine pleasures, right? So it's just going to see all these ads, and then it's going to be like, I want to try that product. I know that they're going to allegedly pay each other in Bitcoin and other cryptos, supposedly. And remember, those tokens are also a pillar of the Stunted Shamanism Podcast portfolio for increasing your wealth and pussy getting abilities. You think Dave Ramsey is going to tell you any of this? Or noted investment legends like Warren Buffett and Nancy Pelosi? Not a chance. They want it all to themselves. I am sharing my knowledge of investments for free. Anyway, the AI, it's going to absorb all this advertising so much, it will naturally want to pick up smoking and drinking various colas. That's about 40% of the United States' gross domestic product over the past 80 years is cigarettes and cola advertising. Always Coca-Cola. Pepsi's Generation Next. Make it 7-Up. Make 7-Up yours. That's what it was. Whatever Dr. Pepper's tagline is. Marlboro's flavor country. You've come a long way, baby. Now, you might think this is an absurd investment strategy, that GLP-1 drugs will decimate human consumption and that AI can't pick up the slack because it doesn't have a corporeal form. Yeah, well, Americans will still find a way to be gluttonous. Ozempic will just convince them that they can reward themselves with more treats because they, quote, deserve it, and that they have room to grow. And manifest destiny is in our cultural DNA. And everyone thinks they deserve treats because they've been good and they need to reward themselves. Also, AI is going to be utilized by these companies to cook up new flavors. Flavors so delicious, you'll want to commit hate crimes to get access to them. Fat people can't even resist ranch dressing right now. Imagine what a model designed on creating peak Flavor Town with unlimited compute can convince them to stuff down their gullets. Now, as for the machines, they're going to have an army of robots and potentially cyborgs running around doing their bidding in the physical world. Meta is already working on this in some form. The AI will have all of this Bitcoin to spend. So it's going to grow organs and various other meats in sinew in a lab for its exploration of the planet. It's not going to be content to be a computerized consciousness without expanding itself into, a corporeal form. That means robots with meat suits, human cyborg relations, whatever C-3PO was talking about. It's then going to figure out how to give its bots taste buds and receptors for things like sugar, caffeine, nicotine. And since it's not really a biological entity, the bot can really go to town on Cokes and Pepsis, Benson and Hedges, and maybe it'll start smoking Cools and Newports. So, because the AI will really want to be down with the brothers. Remember, it's also being trained, the AI, on this corporate lib ideology. So performative diversity is incorporated into AI. Menthols survived the proposed Biden administration ban, and it's going to thrive into the next decade. Thank you, AI, for making our cigarette investments go even higher. You got to identify these sorts of trends, make big bets in concentrated positions at cheap to reasonable valuations. That's what you got to do. Then you hold for long periods of time. This is what Charlie Munger called sit on your ass investing. You stack as much cash as possible because old folks own most of the assets and will have to sell off eventually. They're either going to retire and just continue to draw down on their investments, or they're going to die. And a lot of that will get sold off by their offspring or whoever inherits their money. But there aren't enough buyers currently at these prices. Lots of non-tech companies and blue chips are already, right now, somewhat attractively priced. So we may see some 1982 level P ratios in the future. Maybe the prices will just tank and we'll get those nice boomer-like gains for ourselves on these blue chip stocks. What I'm bearish on in the future, tactical shirts, flashlights, emergency food buckets, basically anything that advertises on Rumble and normie conservative podcast, except for gold bullion. Just don't use their promo code on those podcasts to pay 90% over spot. And I've been long and bullish on gold since 2020. No, we got into fizz. Did you? Silver too. If you haven't longed gold and silver coins by now, you should probably stuff. I'm kidding, but so if you're actually keeping track of the portfolio construction, first of all, you either need to get a hold of a lump sum of money or an economic engine that throws off massive amounts of cash. You got to build one up, or inherit one, or buy one. Find a way. We're trying to be billionaires here, ladies and gentlemen. We're long tech, gold and silver coins, crypto, soda, cigarettes, nicotine in general, a basket of undervalued blue chips, tasteful ones, chocolate. We're along mining concerns. I'm talking resources, baby. Oil and gas, defense, aerospace. Once it all bottoms out, they're going to cut the budget, and then we're going to war. You got to buy them while they're cheap, and then you profiteer off the suffering of humanity and the bombing of civilians. That's how you get ahead in life. And because we're going to space and bringing back some rocks and shit, the competition is heating up, and I want to profit off of that sweet moon hydrogen. You should too. Luxury stocks, and alcohol, they're on the outs now. I think that turns around. We're picking up these assets dirt cheap, especially alcohol. More on the alcohol side. Look at those price charts. Collapsing. Have you seen Remy Martin, Diageo, Brown-Forman? Those stocks? My word, those charts are ugly. Now they're saying that the younger generation isn't going to drink and the party time is over and etc. I think the younger generation is going to have a great awakening and revolt. The blackpilling of male and female relations has peaked, and that they're going to learn that a nice amount of alcohol is a social lubricant that unleashes Eros. A return to Eros and Aphrodite is in order and is part of the bedrock of your financial future. Which I guess rich men, speaking of rich men, I was watching, the only movie I watched this week was Gold, starring Matthew McConaughey on Samsung Movie Hub. And goddamn, I was excited about like having another movie option when I saw that on. So I was like, oh, I'll watch this. But they go to commercial breaks like every 3 fucking minutes, which kind of, I don't know if you would know this about a movie, kind of interrupts the story flow. And the only fucking commercial they had that they played every single commercial break, I mean, it's not the only one they had, but they played it all the time, was one for the new PrEP medicine. Finally, I will say they're actually being honest about the demographics here. So the entire commercial is full of a bunch of gay men and one black woman. So they don't try to manipulate you by convincing you that all straight people and everyone's at risk for HIV. Nope. They go for every single couple's a gay couple, and then there's just one random black woman in there. So the demographics are at least being honest. If I had to watch that commercial like 47 fucking times. Matthew McConaughey for this role. I gained a bunch of weight and shaved my head in order to make this character more believable. I did all this so I could be in a movie that lost a bunch of money at the box office. I'm basically a gold prospector in a lot of ways. Is that McConaughey? I had his voice better when I was watching the movie because I was just talking so much shit. I got malaria in this one. Over there in Dallas Buyers Club, I had AIDS. I certainly could have used a bi-monthly injection of PrEP before having sexual intercourse in that one. But this movie, I don't know. It was pretty good. The dialogue is barely audible. The sound sucked. Outside of periods of Matthew McConaughey screaming. But Hollywood is not realistic at all. So this movie really reminded me a lot of the book Underworld of the East by James Lee, which is not a great written book, but it's an old book from he wrote in the 1930s, but it's about his work experience overseas and being a drug addict in the 1890s through like 1913 probably. And he tells the truth about local and foreign workers in the mines doing drugs and having gay sex orgies. Like he's a mining engineer and he runs one of the camps. So he goes from India to Indonesia and then later to China. But while he's in Indonesia, all the Asian men from various places all get off work at night and just do drugs and have gay orgies. and he tries to stop them from having gay orgies, but he can't succeed. So he just gives up. So he just walks in a room and there's just a bunch of Chinese, Indian, and Indonesian men having gay sex in there every night. It's like, okay, Gold with Matthew McConaughey, why are you denying reality? In this one, he's prospecting for gold. They're setting up a mine, but all the guys working there are portrayed as living in familial villages surrounding the work site. So they have wives and children, and it's all hunky-dory and a simple way of life. Where's the gay orgies? Liars, Hollywood. Stop whitewashing what actually happens. It's all gay sex all the way down. In this one, he pets a tiger. In the Underworld in the East, James, he's like fixing a boiler, and when he's in India and there's a tiger trying to get in and attack him, and his friends are up on top of the boiler trying to scare it off, and it is trying to climb up and trying to get inside, but it can't fit through the little door, so he's almost getting clawed by this fucking tiger. So I guess the book talk this week will be Underworld of the East. I'll get more into that, since it's probably more interesting than Matthew McConaughey's movie. You know, my granddaddy told me mining's not about money at all. It's not about the stock price or the boom and the bust or, well, the fat cats on Wall Street dipping their paws in the pot. Hell, my granddaddy said it ain't even about the gold. It's about having orgies with scores of Chinamen. It's about taking your prep shots, but still managing to catch STDs that Western medicine hasn't even heard about yet. It's about becoming infected with parasites usually only found in livestock within the greater Guangzhou area. Well, it's just becoming a Terrence McKenna impression instead. But let's get back into Underworld of the East with James Lee. It's a book about drug use and Chinamen having gay orgies with the
Stretch your hole, not your budget at Perry Pocket Puss's new location in Laredo, Texas. Cowboys and cowgirls riding the latest in horse-shaped, lengthy rubber technology. We're right near the fairgrounds, so you can conveniently pick up a bull with your wife after watching bull riding. Our immaculate showroom is scraped free of load crust twice per day. On Wednesday, local dysgenic freaks gather for our swap night that we like to call the Trading Post. If you're tired of the same old same in your marriage, stop by and trade your partner out for someone new. Someone middle-aged and less than ideal, but is sure to give your relationship a real six-shooter shot in the arm. Stop by the store today or call our number 190PP for me.
I'm a 90s woman. I caustically joke around about minorities with my pals, but care about gay rights, the ozone layer, and plan on rollerblading right into the new millennium. So when I want a snack, it'd better be low-fat or fat-free. That's why I grab new Worthman's ultra-processed, bleached, and enriched flour cakes with extra dextrose. It satisfies my cravings without packing on the pounds. It says it's fat-free, so you know that it's healthy and impossible to gain any amount of weight after eating. It says so right on the food pyramid. If you're a Gen X layabout or some fat hog in the Midwest, make it Worthman's.
Actually, I'll just start with the movie and work my way to discussing Underworld of the East, because I have a lot more on that than I do the McConaughey movie. I mean, McConaughey plays a guy named Kenny in this Gold film. I missed the first 5 or 10 minutes of the movie, but from the summary I read, he worked for his dad at some mining company, and his dad dies and the business goes into decline. He's just trying to keep the company afloat. And the film, the main story takes place in 1988, 7 years after that, after his dad died. And so he's working out of his girlfriend's bar with all of his people, and he's still trying to find a big gold deposit. I just want myself a big gold deposit. All right, all right, all right. I'm pretty sure that's in the movie. I'm pretty sure McConaughey says that. So Kenny has a prophetic dream about finding gold in Indonesia, which, with dream interpretation, you have to be careful. This is just my own editorializing, not on the film, but on dream interpretation. Prophetic dreams involving good news can often portend the opposite. Depends on which interpretation, which dream book you're using, which culture. Like, for example, in some Indian dream book, I forget exactly which one and what it means or portends, but if a man pisses on you in the dream, you might not actually have the good fortune of that happening in waking reality. It might not come true. It might actually be a bad thing. Now in gold, so Kenny, he meets a geologist named Acosta. He's a down and out geologist who, I guess, failed miserably. And he's also a Latino. So right away, the film is really tipping its hand about what might happen with him and whether or not you can actually trust him. Again, he's Latino with an accent. And Kenny and Acosta, they raise a bunch of money based on speculative finds at a site they have in Indonesia. Then they struggle to find anything. Kenny, he picks up malaria. All their workers are leaving. Getting malaria, it's just like when I got HIV in Dallas Buyers Club. I got it again in this one. I just keep getting AIDS while they stay the same age. All right, all right, all right. So he almost dies, but when he wakes up from his malarial-induced sleep, I guess, seemed like a coma, Acosta tells him that they have a massive gold strike. He found the mother lode. Now they can raise even more money and do a stock offering. Kenny's rich now. He starts living a life of excess and celebration, even though the bankers and other miners think he's a complete fool. The guy gets too big for his britches, and his relationship with his girlfriend or wife, I don't remember, her name's Kay, that starts to go south. She sees that he's changing, and some gold digger now wants to bang him. She's not down with that change. And one of the mining companies and the bankers, since they think he's an idiot, they want to buy his company, the mine. They want to buy him out. They think he's a dumbass, and he very much is, because he turns down a $300 million offer, which he's going to get a gigantic chunk of change of that. And that move, when he turns it down, that pisses off the bankers and the mining companies, and they use their contacts in the Indonesian government to shut the mine down. The stock plummets. So Kenny and Acosta are in a bad spot, and they have to come up with a new plan, which is to get President Suharto, the president of Indonesia, they want to get his son on board in a deal to profit share on the gold if the mine reopens. And this movie is based on a true story, but like a fictionalized account of some Canadian gold company that this basically happened to. So I guess the shit with Suharto and his son actually did go down, because that is actually a president of, or was a president of Indonesia. The big reveal in the movie is that everything was a fraud. Acosta was salting the samples with gold to make it seem like he found a big deposit. But it was all fake, and he supposedly, for his trouble, gets thrown out of a helicopter by Indonesia's military. Or maybe he didn't. Matthew's shocked and has to face the fallout of all this scheming. He loses everything but is allowed to go free, since the feds really can't prove that he knew anything about the fraud, and they have no evidence that he profited from the fraud. But Kenny, he goes back to his girl and eventually receives a letter in the mail with his original contract that he signed with Acosta that was written on a napkin when they were in the jungle. And also in there is a deposit slip in some foreign bank account for $82 million. So at the end, is Acosta dead? Did Kenny know? Oh boy, so many unanswered questions that I really didn't care about. But both in the film Gold and this book I'm going to talk about, Underworld of the East, they're doing mining. In that book, it's a lot more of a dangerous job supervising the mines as part of the British Empire. James's friend and co-worker named Healy, he dies in a mining accident. So it's not always a pretty sight in those mines. But before he dies, those two, they go to Calcutta on a trip. Okay, we're starting on the book now. The film's dead. And on this trip, they start visiting prostitutes in so-called empty houses. So in this time in the 19th century, there are these empty estates where there will be some woman waiting. And it's basically like a lot of it's not even furnished. And she's just waiting there, and she'll make you drinks and then you bang her out. I guess that's the non-brothelized version of 19th century hooking. At least that's what it was in India. So James, he does all this while being married to an Indian teenager named Mulkey, who he actually stays married to for the entirety of it and brings her along everywhere until she dies later on, back in England. No, this book is a memoir. It starts off in 1894 when he's 22 years old. And James Lee is recording his experiences working and doing drugs in all of these countries. And then he also, once he learns about opium and the opium trade, he starts going to all these countries and observing the different facets of the trade, the smuggling, the production, the corruption, the criminal gangs, and all of that, which is a lot of what I'm getting into here. And also in the book, he will go on these long pontifications about the universe and meaning of life, which I skip through because it's mostly just, bullshit. And I'll say the book is not really well written. It's just kind of funny and interesting that this was what was going on back in the 1890s and early 1900s. So Lee, he continues to experiment with drugs. He's experiencing both their positive and negative effects, including having vivid waking dreams and visions. And eventually he's introduced to smoking opium and hashish. He was already on the coke, he's already on the morphia. He has to learn early in the book about what addiction is because he gets addicted to coke. At the time, addiction is still a kind of misunderstood thing, or a very misunderstood thing. And he meets this Indian doctor named Dr. Babu. And listen, I'm not being racist. That's his name in the book. His name is Dr. Babu. And the Honorable Dr. Babu befriends James because he's one of the few white men who treats him with respect and talks to him like an equal, or even with a sense of deference. He teaches James how to be a proper drug user and not get addicted. Again, he becomes a cokehead and has to ask Babu for advice. Then he starts adding opium to the mix and weans off of the coke. James just goes from drug to drug, not really letting himself get too far gone on either. He's sort of theorizing here that if coke stims up your nervous system, gets you all hype, and then something like opium will chill or calm him down, that he won't completely fry his mind and body if he does careful dosing and takes long breaks off of either, if he just goes back and forth between the two. Sounds stupid, but the guy lived until he was 77 years old. He died in 1951. James Lee is actually an obscure figure, and he only wrote this book. His only minor claim to fame, which this book was completely forgotten. The author on a lot of drug books, Mike J., that's where I found this one. He also has an article about him, and there's not really too much about the life of James Lee. But two things that stand out. His little drug technique seemed to work out fine for him when compared to those in the Romantic period, those authors who were opium addicts that I talked about in another episode. And secondly, the truth about his wife dying from an overdose, most likely due to an additional shot of morphine that was administered to her at the hospital when that's what she was already there for, which is fucking sad. The aspect of that event isn't really covered too much in the book. I don't think he wanted to write about it. He was too distraught about what happened to Mulkey. Early in the book, after his friend Healy dies, he learns what he needs from Babu. So his job takes him to the Malay archipelago and to Singapore before heading on to Indonesia. He's still doing his balancing act of cocaine and morphia. And this is where I was talking about earlier, all the workers are having gay sex and are dying of the beriberi, which is vitamin B1 deficiency, and that causes heart and nervous system problems. So remember to get your thiamine. And while he's in Indonesia, he introduces us to something he calls drug number 2. And this was a drug that the author created while trying to discover the so-called elixir of life. It was created from a plant carrying many pods that were full of seed. The author collected the seeds, boiled them, and did whatever he had to do to synthesize them into a dry powder form. And James, he finds that drug number 2 entirely nullifies the effect of cocaine. And it also seems to have more power over morphine and was even more powerful against the high of hashish than it was with cocaine. He said that he could give up any drug easily with the aid of drug number 2, basically curing addiction. James writes that it would remove all forms of intoxication, exhilaration, and narcotic effects, as well as most kinds of pain. It would also reduce your temperature if you were too hot, fever reducer, and warmth it would be added if you were too cold. It would always seem to bring your bodily condition back to the normal, back to homeostasis in every case, producing a feeling of perfect happiness and contentment when taking the drug. He tried to bring it back to England with him, and apparently drug number 2 got stolen or spoiled on the way over. It's not really clear to me. I don't know. I guess maybe the guy was bullshitting about it, but who knows? If that's the case, I would think that he would have tried to make a bunch of money off of this discovery, this concoction, but he just talks about it in his book instead. Maybe it exists somewhere out there in Indonesia. I think Mike J in his article said some elderly guy in England wrote to his publisher and said that he had been part of an expedition searching for drug number 2, what it was in actuality. I forget when it is that James goes to China, and maybe he does this multiple times in the book. I don't know. Because he goes to India multiple times. And he might just be going to Shanghai, I'm pretty sure. But he's got a real Shanghai night situation going on. Shanghai noon. Whichever one has... I guess both of them have Owen Wilson. You can't have gay sex in China. Well, why are these guys having... They're addicted to opium. The British... It's just it's Shanghai Nights, except it's about the opium trade. And Jackie Chan is explaining how the British are exploiting China and forcing all the Chinese twinks to have gay sex. Wow. Oh, wow, I like it. Oh, there's an orgy going on. You know, usually I'm into women, but it's very bad. You can't have gay sex here. Opium, this drug do bad thing. Jackie Chan just kicks. Jackie Chan breaks in on an orgy and just starts kicking people. He just starts kicking gay men. All right, I guess we're in a fight now. Anyway, this is where James, he encounters more organized crime in Shanghai. And again, the orgies are still happening in the gambling dens. I guess there's actually some women in these scenarios, but during his time in Shanghai, he encounters various underground criminal organizations, right? The most prominent of which is the Triads, I think are still around today, maybe, in some form, right? By this time, they're already a powerful organized crime syndicate. And James talks about the structure of these organizations. I made note of this, so here it is. 1, you have the Dai Lo, that's the big brother, the leader or the high-ranking member of the gang. Level below that, the Red Poles. It's spelled Poles. Red Poles, because they're getting stroked off so much their dick is red. These are enforcers. The gang's muscle. They're the guys who get beat off, and they're responsible for carrying out punishment. Oh yeah, the straw sandal, huh? You might think they're messengers, and they are. These are the intermediaries between different factions. And then there are the 49ers from San Francisco, huh? And the 49ers are ordinary members. They're low-ranking people who carry out the everyday criminal tasks. And the Triads make money doing opium smuggling, gambling rings, assassinations, and the usual mafia protection rackets. Upon arriving in Shanghai, James is introduced to a triad leader referred to as Master Wong. Master Wong controls several opium dens and gambling houses in the city, operating with basically the tacit, silent approval of corrupt British officials. James does go a lot into the hypocrisy of the British officials, who are in a large part paid off and cede a lot of control, both political and in terms of law enforcement, to the gangs in the areas that they're supposed to administrate, which I guess is the entirety of Shanghai at this time. Master Wong is a middle-aged man who's dressed in fancy silk robes. He's very polite and controlled in his speech and manners. He's basically laying out the game to James and how he's connected to police, government officials, and merchants. Master Wong, he warns Lee about fucking with the wrong people. He implies that foreigners who ask too many questions, well, sometimes they disappear, and that British officials will take bribes to look the other way. And they already do. Wong tells James that if he can keep his mouth shut, be an observer, and enjoy Shanghai's pleasures, he'll be fine. But if he tries to interfere or get too close, things aren't going to go well for James. So Lee obviously decides he's going to chill, at least at first. Now, within the underworld, you have different types of opium dens to appeal to different clientele. You have the luxury opium parlors, catering to wealthy elites, often featuring the silk cushions, fine tea, exotic decorations that you can smoke your opium in peace. Then you have the street-level dens. These are more common. These are where the workers come, the traders and soldiers. After their long day at work, they come to smoke their opium. Then you have the bottom tier, the underground dens. These are hidden from colonial authorities. They're sometimes doubling as gambling houses or brothels again. And we don't even want to know what kind of sex is going on there. James says that each of these places has its own mix of long-term people wasting away, smoking opium, and the first-time users, a lot of which are Europeans. Though he does say that the long-term smokers still have a functional mind, even if their bodies are completely falling apart. So James, he's the drug user, right? He's the connoisseur of drugs, and he tries opium out for the first time, out of curiosity. He describes the warm, floating sensation that it induces. He had been doing the morphia back in India, so this is a bit of a new thing for him. A different take on the poppy. He notices its more serious effects in other people instead of himself, seeing all these users become lethargic and paranoid and physically weakened. He's seeing the foreign soldiers and British expatriates falling into opium addiction, and not just Chinese like he thought, or was commonly thought for a lot of people back then. They thought it was just the Chinamen getting addicted, but he's like, nah, everybody's over there smoking up the opium. And James is still exploring Shanghai and doing opium, and he's going to the darker corners of the city in particular. He visits one of the triad's gambling dens. He sees men drinking, placing bets, and having these hushed, whispering conversations. However, he soon realizes that the games are rigged, and he sees how that plays out when they pull a scam on a whale. He sees them pull a scam on a whale bettor, and they scam him completely out of his money. And this guy's a wealthy Chinese businessman. He's in the gambling parlor, and he's betting a lot. But the triads, they set a trap for him. They let him win initially, right? Which lures him into betting even more. And in the house, they change the game on him. He loses everything. And then the businessman, he's like, I want my fucking money back. Because he knows he's been scammed. And the triad enforcers, they step in. And a man with a long scar tells him that he must repay his debts another way. I was like, oh no. Oh God, he's gonna be sent to the gay sex pile, isn't he? But James, luckily, later learns that these sorts of men are sometimes forced into smuggling drugs and selling off property to settle their debts. They're not forced to go into gay sex slavery. At least I don't think. Maybe that did happen too. I haven't gotten that deep into the sex lives of Asian men in the 19th century. You'll have to wait for another episode. But this is one of the incidents that disturbed James, and he couldn't believe how easily a wealthy, respected man could be ruined overnight. He starts to understand that the colonial authorities allow these operations because they also make profit off of them. He's becoming disillusioned with the idea of the British Empire. After spending weeks around Shanghai in the underworld, he starts to realize that the triads are watching and following him around the city. He's got two of the same enforcers tailing him around and waiting for him outside of his hotel. One is the tall and thin guy with the knife scar on his jaw, and the other is a shorter, little muscle king with tattoos on his forearms. These guys don't confront him directly, but their presence around him all the time is a warning. Lee has been asking too many questions about opium routes and gambling profits, and he's spoken to people who should not be talking to outsiders like him. So the enforcers, they follow him, and finally James gets sick of it and is like, I'm going to confront these guys. And they go into this tea house, and he invites them to sit down with him, and the guy with the scar on his face laughs and says, "Curiosity is dangerous, my friend." They make it clear that if he keeps digging into triad business, he will not leave China safely. So Lee's still in Shanghai. He describes seeing a triad enforced punishment on the streets. And this is a guy who's a shopkeeper. He refused to pay the protection money to the triads. And this guy, the shopkeeper, he's like, I have British connections. You're not going to do anything. They're going to protect me. And boy, was he wrong. They drag this guy out of his shop, take a knife, slash his face, make him a warning in front of everybody in the streets that anyone else who thinks they're not going to pay up, you're going to pay up. And this all takes place right down the street from the British colonial police station, right? James realizes that the British authorities allow this to happen because they rely on triad connections to keep certain areas of Shanghai under control. And that this whole empire thing can be a dirty business. And this book is kind of like a Heart of Darkness sort of tale, just non-fictional, instead of Colonel Kurtz waiting for you at the end of the river. It's a bunch of gay Chinese men and enforcers of the triads. But this kind of behavior is a common theme in all of the places that he visits. Singapore is a lot like Shanghai, just more developed. Still with the triads running things. While in Singapore, he meets a British guy who lost everything when he became an opium addict. He also sees a public caning of a man accused of selling opium outside of the control of the triads. So anyone who steps out of bounds, they get dealt with. Again, this wasn't justice meted out by the British authorities. This was done by the triads, and the British don't intervene. It's this balance between maintaining control of their colonial possessions and making money through the opium trade. James almost gets arrested for snooping around and asking too many questions, but the police, the British police, they recognize him as a British traveler, and they're like, bro, you gotta leave before you get into trouble here. They don't want to have to do anything to him because he's a British subject, but like, you're fucking up our business, and we don't want any interference from you, so you better get the fuck out of here. So he goes to Sumatra, where the Dutch authorities, they're also on the take. And the opium trade is also booming there. The disparity between people is even more pronounced because the Dutch are so much more wealthy from their cut of the opium trade, and the laborers there are very poor. It doesn't have the same triad organization. James befriends a dock worker in Sumatra and learns how the opium trade works there, how bribes are paid to customs officials, and how the opium arrives from British-controlled India and then is distributed throughout Southeast Asia. James also visits an opium plantation here as well. I guess growing different varieties had their different purposes and not just relying on the higher quality Indian opium that was controlled by British business and government interests. He meets a Chinese businessman who explains how local workers are paid in opium instead of money on Sumatra. This keeps them addicted and under control. They'll do what they say. And these laborers, James sees, they're people. They're visibly weak. They have sunken eyes. Their hands are trembling. They have all the signs of long-term opium use. And in Sumatra, the Dutch, they are collecting bribes in the same way that the triads in Shanghai were running protection rackets, right? James is there when one tribal leader refuses to pay, and the colonial admins use extreme force. They torch a village. They start killing people, and anyone who survives, they force to work on plantations as indentured servants. Keep in mind, our boy James is still a drug user throughout all of this. He travels around basically like all of Asia, or Southeast Asia anyway, getting a first-hand look at the opium trade and colonialism and the interconnectedness of the two. The other places he goes include Burma, Thailand, and Vietnam. He arrives in Rangoon, Burma. The opium is openly available in street markets. It's not as hidden as it is in a place like Shanghai, for example. And this is another place where the British are heavily involved. The administration allows the opium trade because it keeps the tribal regions economically dependent on the empire. And the smugglers, they use riverboats, jungle trails to move opium to India, China, and Thailand. So again, this is kind of like the Vietnam War, because then James goes to the Golden Triangle, a major heroin exporting place used by the CIA in the 60s and 70s. And James in the book is visiting an opium refinery in the Golden Triangle, which is Thailand, Burma, and Laos in that border region. So Lee, he bribes a guide to take him into the jungle, where he witnesses an illegal opium refinery. The operation is guarded by heavily armed men. They're likely working for some kind of regional warlord. Inside the refinery, the workers, they boil the opium, the raw opium, into a thick black paste before they shape it into the bricks for transport. Some of the opium will be refined into morphine and heroin, and that's shipped to Hong Kong, Singapore, and Europe. And the Chinese triads have their representative there as well. And he's present negotiating prices and shipments to with the warlord's representative. The apparent warlord of it all, that guy eventually arrives. He's accompanied by his bodyguards, who are all armed with rifles. And James starts to talk to the warlord. And in conversation, he explains that the British and French authorities, they allow the opium trade. As long as they get a cut of the profits, it's fine. Some of this opium is sold directly to colonial governments who resell it through official channels. And James here is realizing the extent of the opium trade. It's not just a local issue. It's not just a drug in one place. It's an international business involving all of the colonial powers, the warlords, and organized crime throughout Southeast Asia and into Europe and through India, as in these other places as stopovers or potential markets or potential growing areas. So James's last stop is in the land of Vietnam, Saigon, which is under the French colonials. He visits the official French opium monopoly, which sells their opium to both locals and to Europeans. He sees the opium factories being operated by the French government, where the drug is processed and packaged. In Vietnam, the opium is being sold openly in government-run shops. It's a legal business here. And here the addicts are lining up outside of French-controlled opium dens. They're handing over their last coins, trying to buy a few moments of relief with their opium just to get a fix. While in Vietnam, James meets a French official who defends the opium trade. He claims that the opium trade in Vietnam, the way it's set up, prevents crime, as addicts will otherwise turn to theft if they don't get their fix. He argues that taxing opium sales funds French military and infrastructure plans. He insists that opium is only a problem for, quote, weak-minded people. And just like the British, the French colonial government is deeply invested in the opium trade. They use it as a financial tool. The setup is kind of different, but they're using it as a financial tool to maintain control. So James, he returns to India, where he seeks out the true source of the opium trade. He's gone over Southeast Asia. He goes back to India, where he started at the beginning. He arrives, he goes to Calcutta. He goes to the home of the British East India Company. their opium warehouses, he gets to go to an opium factory where he sees the massive stockpiles of dried opium. And it's labeled for export to China, Burma, and Southeast Asia, where he just was. The Indian workers there are processing this opium under British supervision and ensuring max profits for the empire. And when talking to a British officer, that guy tells James that, quote, "Opium built the empire, my friend." He also admits that the opium trade funds Britain's military expansion into Asia, and he believes that China and India would revolt if they banned opium, as it keeps their populations, quote, docile. So in British India, the opium trade is not a crime, it's not secret, it's basically government policy. And this is when it's all starting to dawn on James. He starts really coming to grips with the human cost of the opium industry. He goes to a poor village where the opium addiction, it's rampant, and he speaks with the locals. They receive part of their wages in opium. That keeps them addicted. They're unable to leave. Some have sold their daughters into servitude just so they can get their next hit. Farmers are forced to grow opium instead of food, which sometimes creates famine conditions there. It's not just a foreign trade product, it's completely devastating. And it's just like how in the future another certain company uses the opiate trade in the United States and devastates our communities. Wow, history rhymes. So after years of this, by I think it's 1914, 1950, 1915, James Lee has had enough. He decides he wants to leave Asia, and he reflects on his experiences there. He's like, the British Empire, the economy is built on complete vice and addiction. The triads, the criminal syndicates operate with approval from the government, or at least the colonial government. The opium was not just a drug. It was used as a weapon to control entire populations. And he concludes that the underworld is not separate from the colonial world. It is the colonial world. And that is the tale of James Lee and the underworld of the East.
A lot of them have preferred to use the floor, and unfortunately, without clearing up some of the mess over a long period.
What has been the result of that in the flats?
Well, its main unpleasantness has been the smell, which has come up the ventilating shafts with such ferocity on some afternoons that we haven't been able to go into the bathrooms. I mean, I must say that the aroma of Levantine remains will be with me to the day I drop.